Hello and welcome to another episode of Archery Releases Ad Nauseum, and today I'm going to talk about the new for 2024 TRU Executive Flex Hinge, and I think I might have got the first video out on YouTube about it. One of my earliest reviews on this channel was on the original Executive, and I'll link it down below. I liked it, but it was missing a few things that made it suboptimal compared to other hinges in its price range. In the future, I wouldn't mind actually seeing this type of head with the same geometry in a handle with no adjustable head, have the same height as it is fully retracted, put a flex finger on it, and then a spring or magnet under this hook to keep from having to reset it manually. I think that would actually be a much bigger crowd pleaser than this current setup. In particular, the original Executive had no hook retention and let its head and hook flop around loosely, requiring some extra digital manipulation as compared to other similarly priced hinges. That extra bit of work was enough for me to hang it up and choose to use hinges other than this one. The other issues that are not quite so detrimental are there is no attachment point for a lanyard, the handle is solid and not modular like the rest of the high-end TRU line, and it only came in one size, medium, which in my case was a little too big. Now 1 year later, there's a new version for 2024 called the Executive Flex, and lo and behold, they added all the things that quite a few others noticed were absent from the original. Now, is anyone else wondering why they didn't put these things on the original in the first place? This was not a situation like the Blade Abyss, HBC, or Fulcrum, where they already existed before TRU came up with their adjustable sweep flex finger system, and then adapted the older design to include it. No, this could have been a flex model from the start. Why wasn't it? So either they put it out the way Chris Perkins decided he liked it, or they decided to release a model that was lacking some of the features they wanted to put on it, but for whatever reason did not. So serious question for my audience, and I'm actually looking for an answer to this. If a company releases a signature series item with a pro archer or influencer's name on it, how much input into the design do you think that person actually has on the product? I don't know, and I'm actually interested to find out. I'm of the opinion that manufacturers just kind of come out and go, hey, we have this thing. You want to put your name on it, or do you want this to be? I don't know how much design element. I'm leaning towards none, but if anybody knows for sure, I'd love to hear in the comments. I actually got an answer, I think I got an answer to why didn't the Executive start off with this particular feature set on Facebook when they put out the info on the Executive Flex. I commented that the Executive Flex might be the perfect hinge, but I'm not sure why it didn't start off with this particular feature set. Another commenter replied, because they needed something to release down the line. So instead of getting 10,000 people to buy one release, get 10,000 people to buy the regular last year and the Flex this year. Benjamin Summers, who is the vice president of TRU Excel, responded to my comment with this comment. We didn't have the time on our CNC machines to make the small and large last year, so that drove the decision to come out with only the medium. We also had major delays in the production of the flex finger pieces because they were on every tournament release and we couldn't produce the tens of thousands needed. So we got the original Executive out to as many people as we could, and now have the full versions for everyone. Now maybe I'm reading a little too much into this, but what do you think he meant by the full versions? What do they consider the original? What was the original exactly? It kind of sounds like they should have just waited to put this out until they were ready to produce all the pieces for it, because it seems to be a bit of a compromise and an incomplete piece. I actually don't care that much about the flex finger attachments as I do about the lack of hook retention, because as I said in my previous video, the Executive is the only one of this group that does not have a system for securing the hook. All of the Carters have magnets, the UltraView Hinge 2.0 has a magnet, and the Ascent has a rubber band, which is not ideal, but still, it gets the job done. I also inquired if they had any plans to make the upgraded head available for people who already have the original. I am still awaiting a response. They still have the solid-handled Executive on the website, so I would hope they would put the upgraded heads on those and not leave them the way they were. They could make an extra few bucks making them available to people with the original or selling them to them, because they have in the past offered parts for sale if you reach out to them, and I might see if I can snag one for my original and do a follow-up and report back if I'm successful. The original Executive was released, or rather announced, in December of 2021. I posted my first review of it in May of 2022 because they didn't actually start shipping for almost 5 months. At the time, the world was in a state of disarray, to put it lightly, and all the manufacturers were experiencing delays. That said, personally, I think there should be stock available and ready to ship as soon as a product is dropped. But that's not how they used to operate. This time, TRU made a point to mention in their promotional material that this release is available right now. So once the link on Lancaster Archery's website went live on November 10th, I ordered one. On Friday, November 17th, I received a shipping notification, and November 20th, it was at my house. I live about an hour and a half from Lancaster Archery, so stuff I order from them shows up rather quickly. Next day if they ship in the morning. This time, they didn't ship in the morning. So while it didn't ship immediately, 10 days is far better than 5 months. The absence of any other reviews or Lancaster's product video means I'm probably getting one of the first ones to hit the market, so maybe I'll actually make it into the algorithm. Now that I got that out of my system, let's talk about some positives and negatives. The Executive Flex comes in a blister pack, as do all TRU releases. I could not care less about packaging, and I don't think it diminishes the product if it does not come in a fancy box. I have spoken. So a quick disclaimer, I took a few shots in my basement with this release right out of the box, and out of the box my Executive Flex was set very, very fast. I draw with a very aggressive grip, like this, and I set my hinges hot to match. I didn't have to change a thing on this one to fit my style of draw and shot execution. So if you draw with even finger pressure, which I don't, you're going to want to add travel to it immediately before you try to draw it for the first time. Otherwise you might, punch yourself in the face. So the main thing this release is known for is having a micro-adjustable neck length for the purposes, according to the promotional material, of fine-tuning your draw length. That is not how draw length works, so let's amend that and say that it helps to fine-tune your anchor point and to be able to do so without having to adjust the length of your D-loop. I do like that TRU comes out with new concepts. The Executive and Executive Flex are the only releases on the market with this feature as far as I know. I'll talk about what I think of it a little later and some side effects you may encounter when you use it. The body of the Executive Flex is brass, with TRU's Quicksilver finish, which according to their website is electroless brushed nickel plating. Side note, TRU resistant is spelled RESISTANT. You might want to fix that on your website. Typos drive me absolutely bonkers. The handle on the Executive Flex is pretty thick, and the medium weighs in at 5.4 ounces with the 3-finger attachment, so probably 5.5 with the 4-finger. So if you like a heavy release, this is a good candidate. It does not currently have a lightweight version, so it's brass or nothing. The finish is a little bit slick, but there is checkering on the middle finger bed to aid in traction. So far, TRU and Scott Archery, particularly with the Select Hinge, are the only companies to put traction on the finger beds of their releases, and I wish the rest of the industry would eventually follow suit. The index finger is left smooth, which I think is kind of backwards because I do a little more sliding on the back end than I do with my index finger, but that's how they did it. The flex finger pieces are made of aluminum and are anodized black, and are also checkered on the finger beds to aid in grip. The style of checkering on the Executive's middle finger actually matches the flex fingers, while most of the other TRU handhelds do not. The rest have a series of vertical lines machined into their finger beds instead of the wavy texture on the flex fingers. Functionally, they do the same thing, but aesthetically, I don't think it looks right for them to be different. This looks right because they're both the same. The 3-finger flex finger provides 30 degrees of sweep adjustment, and set fully straight is similar to a HBC, or rather an HT hybrid flex, because the HT's flex finger is not tapered. Fully retracted, the handle is similar to the original Executive. The 4-finger flex fingers have a joint between the ring and pinky finger, so they are independently adjustable from each other. Each joint provides 15 degrees of sweep on top of the 30 degrees you get at the connection point at the handle, and there are hash marks on the spine to reference your settings. So whatever your preference for handle shape, this release should be able to accommodate. The head of the release is aluminum, and an anodized red, and from the photos I've been flashing on the screen, you know what I think it resembles. Good luck trying to unsee that yourself. The head now has a magnet embedded in it, and it holds the hook in the ready position. The head itself still moves freely, so it's not secured like on the HBC, but the hook does not flop around or need to be fingered into position, so that should save you a couple of seconds. At this point, there are very few hinges being produced that don't have some kind of hook retention. Archers who are accustomed to not having it don't seem to mind. I'm spoiled, and I want my hook to stay put. The lanyard attachment consists of a milled out portion of the handle under the index finger bed. They drilled a hole in the side of the handle and inserted a pin through it, but instead of fixing the pin in place, they captured it with a set screw that takes a 50,000th hex wrench and made it so the pin can slide out. This system makes installing and removing the lanyard much easier because you can slide the pin out of the way, insert the loop for your lanyard, and press the pin back in to capture it. Releases with a fully captured pin and a slot can be hard to feed the cord back under that slot once it's been removed. So that's actually a clever little design choice that they made here. The location of the lanyard attachment point also puts it in line to potentially use it as a draw assist. Hinges that are geared for hunters put their attachment points in a similar position under the index finger to allow the archer to put the draw weight on their wrist without the hinge rotating and misfiring. Then again, they didn't have any room to put it anywhere else due to the location of the slot for the flex finger and the adjustment for the neck. So whether they put it there strategically or out of necessity, it's still a good location for it. Out of the box, the executive flex was set way too hot to allow for this method of draw, but it should be able to be set up to do this if you so desire. Fit and finish on the executive flex is top-notch, and I have never had any issues with TRU products in that respect. I don't think I've been able to find a single QC issue with any of their products. The only nitpick I could have on this is the laser etching on one side is lighter where the handle tapers and darker where the laser would have been closer to the piece. So the laser they're using is pretty touchy when it comes to focal length. Besides that, there is nothing to complain about. The executive flex is slated to come in small, medium, and large. Currently, the only size available is medium, with large supposedly being released early in December 2023, and small supposedly being released at the end of the year. The small one is the one I want for myself, so naturally it's the last one to come out. Sizing is comparable to the HBC Flex, and there will be scans available on my website when I get my hands on all of them. The medium will fit most people's hands. I have small hands, and the medium is roomy but usable. The geometry of the head on the executive flex is very aggressive. When it is pinned against the top of the neck, it is almost parallel to the handle, so it takes very little rotation to get it to move. The hook sits above the space between your index and middle finger, which is in the vicinity where most handheld releases have their hooks, so you have a better chance of pairing it up with a good number of thumb releases if you want to run a hinge and a thumb, as is my preference. In this regard, I think it is kind of the opposite of the UV hinges in that it can be set up however you like to use a hinge and regardless of how you like to draw the bow. You can set it very hot and draw with an aggressive pinky forward grip, or set it cold and pull with all of your fingers. If you try to draw a UV hinge with an aggressive grip, it will feel like it takes ages and lots of rotation to get it to go off, if you can get it to go off at all before you run out of air and have to let down. I personally believe that products that can be configured specifically to the archer are superior to products where the archer has to make adjustments in order to be able to use them. I don't want to change for it, I want it to change for me. Especially hinges, because I still have all my teeth and I don't want to have to remember a special way to draw one that doesn't work for all the rest of them. The extendable neck can help you fine-tune your anchor point. I don't personally find any benefits to having this feature since its range runs from about the same as an HBC Flex at its most retracted position, which is not exactly short, and then much further out than I would think would be comfortable to use. At its longest setting, it's longer than a UV hinge, so it goes from fairly long already to unmanageably long. The hook height will also have an effect on the amount of leverage you can apply to the handle. The farther out you set the neck, the more the handle is going to want to straighten out on you while you draw the bow. I draw with a lot of thumb and index finger, and with the neck fully extended, I have to grip it harder in order to keep it from straightening out and hitting the click faster than I want. So my preference is to keep it fully retracted. A potential side effect of using it in a longer setting, though, may help others to achieve a more repeatable anchor point by taking away some of your leverage and forcing you to draw it with your hand in a more easily consistent position. On the one hand, it's nice to have a lot of available options for customization, but on the other hand, I believe that it is possible to have so many opportunities to fiddle with your equipment that you spend more time doing that than focusing on the consistency of your form and shot execution. So how much do you want to mess with your equipment versus working on yourself? Food for thought. One of the other big features of the Executive Flex is an independently adjustable click and speed. Separating the two allows the archer to set it up however he or she wants, and allows the archer to utilize the click in at least 2 different ways. Some archers use the click as a starting point for their shot process, and others use it as an indicator that the hook is about to let go. I utilize the latter, and the Executive can be set for a very fast click. One user of the original claimed the hottest it could be set was roughly 10,000th off of fire. I don't know how he figured that out, but I prefer as hot a click as I can get, and the Executive functions fine for me. The Executive Flex still requires that little 35,000th Allen key in order to adjust the click. That wrench is included, but I really wish they would just beef that area up a little and change it to a 50,000th set screw. That way everything on the release would be adjustable via a folding hex key set. I've made wire forms and chainmail out of thicker wire than this wrench, so I know I'm going to lose it at some point or misplace it. The Executive Flex can be set up as a 3-finger out of the box, or as a 4-finger if you purchase the pieces separately. With the Flex attachment point, that opens you up to also setting it up as a 2-finger, but again, you have to buy an attachment point, and in this case from a third party. Usually 3D printed. I think at this point the manufacturers should probably just start designing their own 2-finger pieces. They seem to know that there are people who use their products as 2-finger releases, but my Steelman argument for that for why is probably because they can only machine so many different items in a given amount of time, and there may not be enough of a demand to manufacture things themselves. Another question I pose to you is there such a thing as too much adjustability? With the Executive Flex having independently adjustable click and speed, adjustable finger sweep, and an adjustable neck, there are countless ways you can set it up. But as with everything else in archery, if you change one thing, everything else can change as well. So are we dealing with a Faustian bargain? What do you give up by gaining a new ability, aside from, obviously, a lighter wallet? Adjusting the neck doesn't only change how it feels at anchor, it's going to influence how the release behaves when you draw it, and that's going to influence how you set the handle sweep and the speed of the moons. The adjustments don't work in isolation, and like everything else in archery, you can't change one thing without everything else changing with it. The adjustable neck and adjustable sweep are going to have their own effect on how you set the speed of the release. Extending the neck can force you to draw with more even pressure across your fingers, which may force you to set the speed colder. Straightening the sweep on the handle will make the release feel faster, and adding sweep can make it feel colder. There are an endless number of combinations this release can be set with, and you can drive yourself nuts trying to find the right one for you. It's the archery equivalent of paralysis by analysis, where dealing with too many variables at once can make it impossible to make a decision and finally decide on a configuration that you can actually stick with. The real thing you give up with too many things at your disposal to tweak is the time you spend fiddling with those and not working on the consistency of your form and shot execution. We need to work on ourselves more than we work on our equipment. My recommendation is to feel free to experiment with it when you have time to play, but only change one thing at a time, and when it's time to get serious, pick a configuration that works sufficiently for you, and then leave it that way and forget about it until after you're finished, and then go back to playing when you have a chance to play. The MSRP for the Executive Flex is $279.99, and its main competition by price is the Stanonics Hinge, UV Hinge 2.0, and Scott Select, which is a little bit less expensive. By features, the only one that has both adjustable sweep finger attachments and independently adjustable click and speed is the Scott Select. The Hinge 2.0 has adjustable click and speed, but does not have adjustable sweep finger attachments. The Stanonics Hinge has adjustable sweep finger attachments, but the hook has a fixed click length with 3 available speeds, and you have to buy those separately. The Executive Flex is the only one of the bunch with an adjustable neck. The Onyx Hinge and Scott Select both come with 3 and 4 finger attachments, while the Hinge 2.0 and Executive Flex come as a 3-finger, and you have to purchase the 4-finger attachment separately. So I think the Executive Flex it has the most features easily out of the bunch, and if the handle fits you, then it's the one to go with. In conclusion, this release has just about everything you could possibly want in a hinge. It comes in 3 different sizes, hopefully. It can be configured in 2, 3, or 4 fingers, has a sweep adjustable handle, independently adjustable click and speed, magnetic hook retention, head geometry that should work for just about anybody, a lanyard attachment system, and while it isn't cheap, it's on par with the rest of its competition. They're not really trying to gouge you with this one, unless you decide to buy it as a 4-finger, in which case it's going to cost you over $300. This one is going to be my primary hinge, and I just wish they had released this from the start instead of teasing us with this first. But those are my thoughts. Please let me know yours in the comments. Until next time, take care, stay safe, and happy hunting.